At 6:11 a.m., my phone lit up. No more free babysitting. By 9 o'clock, the duplex they live in was under contract. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. I stood at my kitchen counter, coffee going cold, thumb hovering over the message while the baby monitor on my fridge magnet chirped a ghostly silence. My son's text sat there like a final notice. After 3 years of midnight bottles, school pickups, and rent adjustments, I scrolled to my trust app and tapped the clause I wrote after my husband died. Reversion on disrespect. The clause most people laughed at, the one my lawyer called colorful. I called our realtor, pulled the file from the firebox, and slipped on the same cardigan I wore to every emergency. This time, I was the emergency. I'm 66, a retired ICU nurse, with a left knee that forecasts rain and a right hand that knows the weight of file folders. The duplex sits 3 blocks from my house. A brick shoebox with a maple out front and a dent in the mailbox from the winter the plow skidded. I bought it after my husband, Mark, died, rolled over his union life insurance, refinanced my own place once, and tucked both under the Harbor Lane Living Trust. I keep the trust binder in a red firebox, along with birth certificates, a baggie of marks, cufflinks, and the lease riders I wrote myself in blue tabs. One tab is labeled, Respect and Cooperation Clause. My lawyer, Hart, sighed when I insisted on the title. I told her, grief gave me new handwriting. My son Jamie moved into Unit A for 6 months, while he and his wife, Lena, got on their feet, the day they carried in the crib. I set a casserole on the stove and slid the binder across the counter. 2 witnesses, or a notary for amendments, I said, tapping the page. Automatic reversion if a tenant harasses the landlord or withholds required information. Mom, Jamie laughed, eyes soft with new dad panic. You're the landlord and the grandma. Exactly, I said, and kissed the top of his head. I cook, I drive, I fix leaking traps with a crescent wrench and YouTube. I also noticed things, like the avocado puree crusted on the high chair in a pattern that said fed in a rush by someone checking a phone. Like Lena switching perfumes from warm vanilla to something sharp and floral, the week her parents visited from Toronto and forgot the story of where Lena grew up. They called her by 2 different childhood nicknames at the barbecue. I washed paper plates that night even though they were disposable, because old habits die slower than husbands, and found a napkin pressed with a hotel logo from Riverview Suites, not the Airbnb they swore they debooked. I slipped it into a Ziploc and labeled it with the date. Domestic life has a soundscape, the clink of my chipped blue mixing bowl, the baby monitor's soft static, Lena's heels at 7:52 on Tuesdays, Jamie's key scrape when he's trying not to wake the baby at 1:10 a.m. the night before the text. The key scrape came at 2:43. In the morning, I stood at my counter with my coffee and my rules and counted the ways you can say enough without raising your voice. At 10:12 a.m., I walked to the duplex to leave fresh soup on the stoop and found a peach slip in the mailbox. Certified mail notice available at post office, on the back, in small print. From County Recorder. My stomach did that ICU elevator drop it reserves for bad floors. At the counter, the clerk slid me a manila envelope with a rubber band bruise. Inside, a rejected stamp across a document that should never have existed, quitclaim deed, purporting to transfer the duplex from me to Harbor Lane LLC. Ma'am, it didn't record because the parcel number was wrong, the clerk said, tapping a redink note. Also, the notary stamp was from Kings County, not ours. I stared at my signature, a leftward slant ID never hadn't the notary block Mendez. Witnesses listed in tidy caps: Marco Duarte and Ana Duarte. Lena Esperance Torrando, who forgot the story of her school. I could smell Riverview Suites in the paper, industrial citrus and linen starch. Who submitted this? I asked. Courier drop, she said. But the acknowledgement says executed at Riverview Suites, RM 614, last Tuesday, 7:35 p.m. I felt every year of my knee as I leaned closer. There it was, in tiny type, 7:35 p.m. Jamie's key scrape had been 2:43 a.m. Tuesday night, which meant the deed signing fake was earlier that evening. While I was upstairs pureeing squash for the baby and booking a pediatric dental checkup. Can I see the notary journal? I asked, keeping my voice calm in that nurse way that makes people cooperate. She hesitated, then wheeled her chair to a back shelf and returned with a thin blue book in a plastic sleeve. This is public record when attached to a filing, she said, almost apologetic. ID provided, Driver's license, last 4 digits, 4417. Mine ends in 0362. I took out my phone and snapped photos date-stamped, geotagged, and texted them to Hart, my lawyer. Me, rejection saved me, forged quitclaim, notary in Kings, witnesses, Lena parents, need you. Hart called within 2 minutes. Do not confront. Come to my office. Bring the envelope. And Ruth, do not leave the baby with them. As if on cue, my screen lit with Jamie. Mom, can you take Mia tonight? Lena has a thing. No please, I typed. Drop her at my house at 6. Then I opened my trust app at the kitchen counter, scrolled to respect and cooperation clause, and flipped the blue tab in the binder where the landlord remedies section lived. Notice to cure or quit emergency protective filings, title fraud affidavit. I laid the forged deed beside my mixing bowl. The citrus linen smell fought with the onion in my soup and lost. I pressed the hotel napkin I'd saved months earlier against the deed like a puzzle piece. Riverview Suites, same typeface, same micro-emboss on the edge. Irrefutable enough to start, not enough to finish. Okay, I told Mark's cufflinks in their baggie, like a habit. If they want a paper fight, we'll speak paper. Hart's office smells like eucalyptus and litigation. She slid a legal pad to me, then snapped on reading glasses with a click that meant war. Chain of title first, she said. Then fraud affidavit. Then protective order on the trust. She angled the forged deed. Kings County notary on a Harbor County parcel. Amateur hour with expensive pens. Lena's parents signed as witnesses. I said, they're not who they say they are. Hart nodded. I'll pull their I-94 entries and DMV. Meanwhile, we get the recorder to place a title fraud alert, and we serve Jamie and Lena a notice to cura, or quit behavioral breach under your clause, not rent. Cleaner. The paralegal, Jules, came in with a portable scanner that sounded like a zipper. We also flagged notary ID, she said. Belongs to a Sofia Mendez. She's registered in Kings, but her journal's chain of custody is sloppy lots of hotel entries. Weird hours. Hotel entries, I said. Riverview Suites. Hart picked up Jules. Call Riverview. Ask for security footage retention on 6th floor, last Tuesday, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. Subpoena to follow. Jules ghosted out. Already dialing. Hart scribbled on a sticky. 2 tracks, she said. Track A, property recorder, title co, fraud affidavit, notary complaint. Track B, people who are Marco and Anna. Who is Lena? Why now? We also check for life insurance policies, or HELOCs, in your name. HELOC ladder, I asked. Fraudsters love to stack home equity lines. Pull $50,000. Pay down. Pull again. Quiet theft. She slid me a form. Sign for temporary freeze on any new liens against the trust assets. Jules stuck her head back in. Riverview keeps footage 72 hours unless preserved. We're at hour 66. Hart stood. We go now. Riverview's lobby had a bowl of green apples that tasted like lavi. Security eyed the letterhead Hart carried like a weapon. Preserve 6th floor, Hart said. You can either hand us a copy or accept that I'll get it with court letterhead tomorrow and add uncooperative to the memo. The guard swallowed and buzzed a manager. 10 minutes later, we were in a small office with a monitor. The manager scrolled, elevator doors opened. Lena stepped out in the sharp floral perfume I could smell through glass. Flanked by Marco and Anna, a 4th figure waited at the end of the hall, holding a thin blue book and a briefcase. Notary, Hart said. They entered room. The door opened. Lena passed a stack of papers to the notary in the hall. The camera caught a slice of signature my name, wrong slant in the notary's hand, flipping open the journal. Pause, Hart said. Zoom. The manager shrugged. This is as good as it gets. Enough, Hart murmured. We can authenticate via hash on the footage when we subpoena. Chain of custody starts now. Email that to Jules. She turned to me. Ruth, you brought the napkin. I handed her the Ziploc. Hart photographed it beside the screen with the scale card, then again with the forged deed. My phone vibrated. Jamie, running late. Can you pick Mia up from us instead? Hart's eyes met mine. Say you're coming. And Ruth, check the medicine cabinet when you're there. Look for cardiac glycosides, digitoxin, plant alkaloids. Poisoners start in kitchens and bathrooms. I stared. I think competent people multitask their crimes, Hart said. And Lena's timing screams pressure immigration window. Perhaps. Status adjustment, interview due soon. A property in her name via Shell LLC would look great. Jules texted, got Lena visa, pending, marriage 18 months ago. Jamie, parents lack SSNS, Hart's mouth tightened. Staged parents, affidavit of support vulnerability. If she's lied, that's federal. We left with a copy of the footage on a thumb drive sealed in an envelope, Hart signed across the flap. In the car, she handed me a small voice recorder. Turn it on before you go in, she said. Ask casual questions. Dates, where her parents live. If she mentions the notary or the deed, do not bite. We'll let the rope spool out. I parked one house down and clicked the recorder on before knocking. Jamie opened, hair damp, guilt written like a rash. Hey Mom, he said, stepping aside. Lena's getting ready. Mia barreled into me with a Cheerio grin. Grandma, where are your parents staying? I asked lightly, smoothing Mia's hair. Still at that Airbnb, you know, the one with the blue porch. Jamie blinked. Ah yeah, over on what street, babe? Lena appeared, lipstick precise, floral perfume, knifing the room. Yes, same place, she said. Blue porch. Nice, I said. Near Riverview Suites. I always get turned around down there. She stilled, then smiled with too many teeth. No idea. I don't. Go downtown. In the bathroom, while Mia sang the ABCs from the doorway, I opened the mirrored cabinet, lined up like soldiers. Milk thistle, valerian, a dropper bottle, labeled Hart tonic, with a stylized foxglove bloom, another, labeled Nerium blend, 1 to 2 drops daily. My ICU hand moved of its own accord, photographing labels, lot numbers, and the tiny disclaimer, contains cardiac glycoside, not for use without medical supervision. On a lower shelf sat a glass jar with bay leaves and something stiffer. Darker oleander, looks like bay if you've never watched a man's heart stall from it at 3 a.m. I popped the lid and sniffed. Bitter green. Back in the hallway, Lena tugged on a blazer. We'll be home late, she said. Don't wait up. Where are your parents tonight? I asked, breezy. Thought I'd drop off soup. What was their cross street again? Jamie's phone buzzed. He glanced down, then away. They changed places. Another Airbnb, closer to the other lake. Nice, I said. Names on the booking. Silence breathed between us. The recorder worked like a second spine. We have to go, Lena said. Mia's bag is by the door. I buckled my granddaughter into her car seat and drove to Hart's office with the speed limit and every light green. We watched the footage from Riverview again, this time pausing on the notary's thin blue book. The moment she handed Lena the journal to sign, Jules pulled Harbor Lane LLC, Hart said, dropping a printout on the table. Registered last month. Registered agent Eduarte. Manager, Esmendazor, notary, mailing address, a parcel center on Willow. It's a shell. Jamie, I asked, throat sandy. Hart hesitated like a surgeon deciding where to cut. Open the second page, there it was. Manager addendum filed 2 days after the LLC formed, adding J. Harwell as a silent manager. My son's name, my son's handwriting on the addendum. I knew the way he made his J like a fishhook. I'd taught him. Why, Jamie? I whispered to nobody. Jules slid in another sheet. Also found this. Form 485 supplement adjustment of status filed last week. Lena lists Harbor Lane LLC as family business, an anticipated address. She provided 2 letters of reference from her parents, Marco and Anna Duarte, with Canadian phone numbers that route to prepaid voicemail trees. We traced the numbers to a WhatsApp casting board, ad posts titled, Need mature couple for meeting, $400 cash, no ID, 2 hours. My breath made no sound, so they staged it all. Hart nodded. They needed stable housing and assets on paper for the interview, plus the deed to show bona fides and you as the donor. The quitclaim, if recorded, would have let them attest familial gift. It's tidy. Criminal, but tidy. I found tinctures, I said. Nerium, foxglove. Hart's expression hardened. Then they planned 2 exits. Legal capture of the house, and if you balked, medical vulnerability. A syncopal episode here, a fall there. We test your talk screen tonight. We also filed title fraud affidavit, notary complaint, and serve a notice to cure or quit citing harassment and attempted fraud. And Ruth, yes, we add a POA revocation notice to your medical file, just in case someone tries to slip a springing POA in front of a sleepy doc. Jules slid a final sheet onto the table. and this term life insurance application submitted online 3 days ago. Insured, you beneficiary, Harbor Lane LLC, contact S. Mendez. The room tilted, the board flipped. It always does at the midpoint only. This time the pieces had my son's fingerprints on them. Hart tapped the stack into alignment. We're past warm soup. Time for... By 8 p.m. Hart had a 3-pronged plan taped to her glass wall in blue painter's tape. Prong 1 paper, she said. Tonight we file your title fraud affidavit and recorder. S request for administrative hold that flags any deed touching your parcel. We also file a notary misconduct complaint referencing ID and request the journal under subpoena. Jules, draft the LLC beneficial ownership disclosure request. FinCEN requires it now. If they lie there, it's federal. Got it, Jules said, fingers hunting the keys like a pianist. Prong 2 person, Hart continued. We serve a notice to cure or quit not for rent, but for harassment, fraud attempt, and misrepresentation under your clause. Cure requires 1. A signed declaration under penalty of perjury, denying involvement. 2. Disclosure of all third parties with keys. And 3. Consent to a voluntary unit inspection for safety. Inspection, I asked. Camera in a smoke detector, Hart said. You're the landlord. You check co-detectors, outlets, GFC is. While there, you collect any herbal tinctures will, compare bottles, lot numbers, chain of custody. If they refuse, that refusal is our breach. Prong 3 proof. She pointed to the last column. We do a baseline talk screen on you tonight. Digoxin immunoassay. If positive or equivocal, reflex to LCMS, MS for oleandrin. We also take a hair sample. It shows a month-long timeline. If they poisoned you, we'll see it. Meanwhile, I'll get a judge to sign a preservation order for Riverview's footage. I exhaled. And the baby. Hart's voice softened. We motion for a temporary protective order, limiting unsupervised contact until this is sorted. Not because you're weaponizing Miaboth, because someone in that house plays with cardiac glycosides. Jules looked up. Process server can hit the duplex at 6:30 a.m. with notice and inspection scheduling for noon. Also, Lena's AOS interview notice just populated in the system Monday, 9:20 a.m. We can deliver a packet to USCI's, Shell LLC, fake parents, forged deed. If they go in, the officer will ask very specific questions. Hart turned to me. Your role tonight, eat something salty, drink water, and stay with Mia. Keep the recorder rolling. If Jamie mentions papers, ask him which ones. If Lena references Sofia Mendez or the LLC, say you don't understand and ask her to explain like you're slow. A laugh escaped me, small and tired. I can do slow. At 10:15 p.m., Jamie called. I put him on speaker with the recorder beside the salt shaker. Mom, is Mia asleep? He asked. Out like a light, I said. How was downtown? A sharp inhale. What? The restaurant, I lied mildly. The one by Riverview Suites. Silence. Then, we weren't. Look, Lena says you've been confused. She's worried you left the stove on last week. Hart, across the table, scribbled, guardianship angle. Sweet of her, I said. Maybe bring her tonics tomorrow, the ones with the foxglove and Nerium. A dropped beat. What tonics? The ones in your cabinet, I said softly. Bring them when you come at noon. We'll do the inspection together. The breath on the line changed shape. We'll be there, Jamie said. Noon. Hart met my eyes. Good now. We set the trap at 6:31 a.m. The process server's knock sounded like a gavel. Lena opened the door in a robe. Jamie hovered behind her, eyes wrecked. The server handed over a tidy stack. Notice to cure or quit. Title fraud affidavit copies. Notary complaint. Recorder's hold confirmation. And an inspection notice for noon. He read the first paragraph aloud. Lena's jaw squared, but her hand shook just enough for the papers to clatter on the console table. Noon, I said simply. We'll check the GFC's NCO detectors. Bring the tonics to the kitchen counter. At 9:05, Hart texted. Recorder acknowledged. Hold. Notary board expedited review. USCIS liaison confirmed receipt of our packet. 15 minutes later, talk screen, equivocal digoxin hair sample collected. It wasn't proof of dose, but it was a breadcrumb, and breadcrumbs become maps. At 11:58, Hart and Jules arrived with a small pelican case inside, tampered evident bags, evidence seals, swabs, and a portable LC reader to log lot numbers. I carried my old landlord clipboard like a shield. Noon. Jamie tried a smile that belonged to a year we didn't live in anymore. This is overkill, Mom. Safety, I said. Begin with kitchen. On the counter, Lena laid out 4 bottles and a jar like she was plating dessert. Hart tonic foxglove on the label. Narium, blend 2 drops daily. 2 amber droppers with smudged lot codes. The jar of bay leaves. Hart snapped photos with a scale card. Then read each label into the recorder, spelling the lot codes. Ruth, please initial the seals, she said as she slid each bottle into a bag. Jules wrote, chain of custody. 12:07 p.m. Unit A Kitchen. Present, R. Harwell owner. H. Keen counsel. J. Harwell, L. Harwell. Lena crossed her arms. They're herbal. My grandmother used them. Foxglove kills grandmothers, I said softly. Jules opened the medicine cabinet, found supplement invoices, she called, holding up a printout with a prepaid Visa number and a Willow parcel center pickup. Hart looked to Jamie. What's at Willow? He flicked his gaze to Lena. Mail drops, he said. Small. Next, Hart said. Voice level. Keys. Who, besides you two, has copies? Her parents, Jamie said. And do the notary had one too? Stop, Hart said gently. Notaries don't carry tenant keys. He sagged onto a chair like it had arrested him. I messed up, he said. Lena said it was just paperwork for immigration. She said it would help. Help who? I asked. Before he answered, a second knock. Hart checked the peephole, then opened 2 suits. County Investigator Alvarez and USCIS FDNS Officer R. Chen. Hart had filed our packet with a preservation request. It moved faster than any of us expected. We're here to collect documents and preserve evidence related to a suspected immigration benefit fraud and property title fraud, Chen said calmly. Voluntary cooperation advised. Lena's eyes went flat. You can't just. Alvarez lifted a gloved hand. We can, with your consent, or we wait 20 minutes for a judge and come back broader. He gestured to the console table. Those will do for now. Hart slid the Riverview thumb drive across with our signed flap. Chain of custody unbroken from hotel to here, she said. Alvarez nodded, bagged it, then turned to Jamie. Did you sign any documents adding yourself to an LLC called Harbor Lane? He asked. Jamie's mouth opened, then closed. Yes, he said. I thought she said it was for taxes. Officer Chen unfolded a paper. Your AOS interview is Monday at 9:20 a.m. Until then, do not destroy documents, and do not attempt to influence witnesses. We will verify your parents, Ms. Harwell. Duarte, Lena said automatically, then caught herself. Alvarez took the jar of bay leaves and sealed it. We'll run LCMS, he said. If this is Oleander, you'll both want counsel. A sound came from my son I will remember longer than my own name, Lena. Her silence confessed where words could only lie. Hart touched my elbow. Ruth, last step. I pulled the Harbor Lane Living Trust binder from my bag, opened to the Respect and Cooperation Clause, and handed Jamie a pen. Initial that you received notice to cure or quit, and that you understand the reversion triggers if you don't. His hand shook, but he signed. Outside a maple shed, a leaf onto the stoop-like punctuation. Inside, consequences began. The officers left at 1:22 p.m., evidence bag numbers logged. The jar of bay leaves riding away like a hostage we hoped would talk. The apartment felt hollowed out like the sound after a bell stops ringing but your ear still hums. Jamie stood in the kitchen, wrists on the counter, staring at the pen mark where he'd initialed. Mom, he said, voice sanded down. I didn't know about the insurance, I swear. You knew about the LLC, I said. You knew about the deed long enough not to ask me. I thought it was paperwork. He winced at his own word. We were drowning. The interview's Monday. Rent day, Carlina said. This was how families help. Families use keys, I said. They don't pick locks. Lena's gaze skated off every fixed point in the room. Your clause is ridiculous, she said, quieter than before. People say things when they're angry. My clause doesn't punish words, I said. It punishes actions. You staged parents. You brought a notary to a hotel room. You bought cardiac glycosides with a prepaid card and labeled them tonic. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. You can't prove intent. Hart's voice was soft. Intent is a jury's business. Today is about boundaries. We walked the unit smoke alarms. Outlets. The baby's room. I paused at the crib and tucked 2 fingers under Mia's quilt, a habit from ICU nights I never shook. On the dresser was a photo in a white frame, Jamie holding Mia on the day she came home. My reflection floated behind them, a ghost I recognized, back in the living room. Hart set the next page on the console table. Inspection report safety items. Okay, behavioral cure pending. You have 3 days to cure, she said. That means full cooperation, written disclosures, and surrender of extra keys. No more hotel meetings, no third-party managers. If you don't cure, the reversion clause activates. Title stays in trust. You vacate. Jamie nodded, eyes wet. An old habit, how he used to accept consequences after sneaking the car at 17. I'll fix it, he said. Fixing, Hart said, starts with truth at USCIS and a statement to county. If you lie there, nobody can help you. We left them with silence and paperwork. At my house, Mia napped with her palm open, a tiny basin catching dreams. I sat at the table with Hart and poured tea that felt too small for the day. Ruth, she said, you asked earlier why he did it. People do math when they're afraid. They forget the variables that don't fit. I won't forget, I said. But I won't burn the whole equation either. Hart nodded. Then tomorrow, we sell the duplex. Your decision on your timeline. I looked at the window where the maple filtered late light into squares on my floor. Tomorrow, I said. The offer on the duplex came through at 9:14 a.m. A young couple with a VA loan, clean contingencies, 30-day close. I signed the acceptance with a pen that didn't shake. Hart reviewed the rider we added overnight. No assumption of existing tenants. Title conveyed by trust. Reversion clause affirmed. I emailed Jamie the notice. Sale in process. Month-to-month converts to 30-day move-out upon close. Supervised time with Mia at my house Wednesdays and Sundays until county finishes. I typed each word like a brick in a boundary wall. At noon, Officer Chen called. Ruth, quick update. The parents, Marco and Annette, admitted they were paid for a meeting. Lena's file is flagged for fraud review. Monday's interview is still on, but it's changed FDNS present. Thank you, I said, the 2 words fitting in my mouth like new teeth. At 3:05, Alvarez left a voicemail. Oleandrin detected, not a lethal concentration, but present. Coupled with my equivocal digoxin in the bottles, it formed a map even a jury could follow. Hart forwarded the chain of custody log. I scrolled through seals and signatures, each initial A thread tightening the net. Jamie came by at dusk with a paper bag of toddler socks and a face from our kitchen table years boy at the threshold, asking for another try. We sat on my porch steps while the maple threw laced shadows across our shoes. USCIS will ask if I knew, he said. I'll tell them I signed the addendum. I'll say Lena told me it was taxes, then a business thing, then a way to help her prove stability. I'll say I was a coward. Tell them the truth, I said. Tell county the truth, too. I handed him a folder, copies of the LLC addendum, the Riverview preservation receipt, the tonic labels. Take these to your public defender if you need one. He stared at the folder like it might bite. Mom, will you forgive me? Not today, I said. Maybe not this year. But I will sit with you while you tell the truth. And I will not let anyone make Mia unsafe. He nodded, shoulders dropping like a man who'd been holding a door against the storm, and finally stepped aside. By week's end, the buyer's inspection cleared. We scheduled the close. I kept my title, my trust, and my pulse. I also kept the clause people laughed at reversion, on disrespect, because I learned it was never about punishment. It was about a promise to myself. I moved the red firebox to a safer shelf and started a new binder labeled MIA 529 plan paperwork. A note about foxglove and tonics, a photo of her sleeping with one fist open to the air. I donated my spare crib to a women's shelter and set 2 extra place settings at my table for Wednesday nights. When friends asked why I sold the duplex, I said, because my son texted no more free babysitting. And the next morning I remembered, I'm not a service, I'm a person with a house and a heart. Thanks for listening. I'll meet you in the comments.